and then you guys can.
Okay.
Alana, you might want to alert people in the chat about that.
I think I have the chat off because people had been chatting during the meeting, and so I've been requested in the past to turn the chat off. But
Yeah,
we can.
The chat actually provides some problems with the open meetings law because the chats are not recorded. And if presumably a quorum of the board is chatting, but it's not being heard by the public or seen by the public, then that poses a problem. But I think practically it's a bigger problem with respect to people chatting and expecting that their chats would be responded to, the public's chats would be responded to by the planning board.
John, what were you saying about Rachel? Is she coming?
I spoke to her earlier and she said she would be here tonight.
Okay.
But we have a quorum, so. All right, so here we go. Welcome to the Village of New Paltz Planning Board regular meeting of Tuesday, December 7th, 2021, 7 p.m. via remote access. The meeting is being held via Zoom. On our agenda tonight, we have administrative business, including approval of notes, updates from the different boards, public comments. We have 2 public hearings, and then we have 6 application reviews. So with that in mind, let's get started. Okay, first for the administrative business, we need a review of the notes from the last meeting. Did everyone get a chance to take a look at those notes?
Yes.
Yes.
Any edits that you think need to be made? No? Okay, then I need a motion to approve the notes from the November meeting.
So motion.
I need a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried and the meeting notes are approved. Next, we will want to have updates from the Environmental Planning Board, Ulster County Planning Board, and the Village of New Paltz Board of Trustees. Will Murray, you are here, so would you like to give us the updates that you have, please?
Sure. The village board continues its discussion about good cause, a proposed law that would help people stay in their apartments. We're also looking at another law that we've drafted, some unconscionable rent increase law that if a landlord wanted to increase an existing tenant's rent at renewal or even during the term of the lease, that some evidence to show why the increase was there if it's over a certain amount of money. We're looking at maybe 5% of the current rent. And those are the 2 big issues we've been looking at. Been looking at these for a couple months now. I've gotten a lot of feedback from the community, from tenants, from landlords. It's kind of a movement going on around the state of New York. Several cities have passed a law that was examining this situation. However, we find that the laws that have passed so far have been not a good fit for New Paltz nor defensible in court. We're also waiting for a determination from the Attorney General's office, which I think the city of Beacon presented to the AG's office for examination and for guidance once that comes through.
Okay.
How does this affect the planning board, Bill?
Well, you've got tenants, you've got landlords, people applying for addition for their house or, an added room for rental purposes. All this applies to the planning board.
So if they come to us and they want to put on an addition to the house, well, we had a couple a while back, I think you might have been on the board, where they would have a garage and they would want to convert the garage into living space, many times for in-laws or for just to add. I remember one of the ones was the woman needed the money just to cover her expenses. So if you're going to invest money in making an addition, now you're saying you're going to be controlling the amount of money you can make?
It's at this point, we haven't made a decision, but before the village board is an examination of a law that would allow a tenant perhaps first refusal on renewals, plus several other items that would allow a tenant to stay or be evicted. The other law is about putting some sort of measure on how much a landlord can increase a rent being charged, either no matter what the situation is. So how it affects the planning board is, well, I think you need to be informed that this is being discussed and that we have a huge rental market here in New Paltz, and I think any information that pertains to that market is worthwhile, is worth knowing.
All right, thanks.
Very good. Okay. Well, thank you very much for the update on that. Any other updates that we need to cover? Very good. Okay, so we're going to press forward just a little bit here. We have a new schedule that was sent out by Alana, and this is for the 2022 Planning Board meetings, and it does give a submission date and a meeting date covering January to July, and then the back half of the year through 2020, the first two meetings of 2023. Please, let's all take a look at it. For instance, there is a meeting on the 5th of July, just following the 4th. There is a meeting 4 days before Christmas, 2 days before Thanksgiving as well. It's good. But just take a look at it if you would, please, and see if there are any comments or any things that strike you as being important, so that we can cure that as we need to before we carve that in stone. Okay. Everybody get that, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. Very good then. All right. So we would be remiss if we did not note that today is December 7th. That is Pearl Harbor Day. And we want to acknowledge the sacrifice that was made such a long time ago, and to be aware and be thankful for that. So now we're going to move on to public comments. Alana, is there anyone that is here to speak?
I don't know if there's anyone here for just general public comment. We do have 2 public hearings. So if someone's here to speak on something other than the public hearings, they can do so now. I don't know if anyone is here for that.
So this is just for the public comment section. We're going to hold the public comments open until the close of the meeting. So next we'll move on then to the public hearing. We have the public hearing for the SUP PB 2112 1 through 3 Henry W. Du Bois Avenue. Applicant is Phil Leager. The zoning district is NBR. And I need a motion, please, to open the public hearing on PB 2112.
So motion.
I need a second, please.
Seconded.
So the meeting is now open. Is there anyone here to speak to the matter of PB 2112? And Lana, do you have any comments that have been forwarded to you about PB 2112?
No, nothing has been submitted in writing.
Okay. As it appears there is no one here to speak on that, I then need a motion to close the public hearing.
So motion.
I need a second, please.
Second.
So the public hearing for PB 2112, 13 Henry W. Boyd Drive is closed. The next public hearing is a site plan for PB 2116, 20 Millbrook Road. The applicant is Andrew Ng. Zoning district is R2. So I please need a motion to open the hearing.
So motion.
Need a second, please.
I second.
Is there anyone here who is there anyone here to speak to the matter of the site plan PB 2116 for this public hearing?
I did get something in writing, after the deadline from Justin Dates. He's a neighbor and he was just writing in support of it.
Okay, so please add that to the record if you would.
Sure. It's in the application folder.
So is there, hearing that there is no one else here to speak to the matter, I would need a motion to close the hearing, please.
So motion.
Second, please.
I second.
So the public hearing for PB 2116, 20 Millbrook Road is now closed. Next, we're moving on to the application reviews. The first application review is PB 2112, 1 through 3 Henry W. Du Bois Avenue. And this is an application for an SUP in a multi-use building to open a restaurant. We had our public hearing. The applicants provide revised materials as requested. It's available in the folder that Alana sent to us. There is a resolution draft, but we will be moving through this application then. So, Mr. Leaguer, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Very good. Okay, let's take a look at this. So, give me a moment while I get to my notes. This is an application special use permit seeking a waiver of the site plan requirements, which provide, except as limited by 21238A, the application for special use permit shall contain the same information as required for site plan review, according to the subsection, unless waived by the planning board. No application shall be considered as complete until such a time as the building inspector has received all required information and documentation. This is a type 2 action. The property is exempt from referral under the agreement with Ulster County Planning Board. We have held the December 7th public hearing. And then we move on to the general issues. Although the planning board possesses the power to waive any of the elements required to be furnished on a site plan, there's no standard guiding the planning board as to how and for what reasons may a waiver be granted. So the board should give non-arbitrary, fact-based reasons for any waivers granted and realize that generally such waivers must be granted upon request for future similarly situated applications. So what we are doing here, folks, is we cannot waive the site plan requirements, but we can waive individual pieces of the requirement. And so we need to go through these. Has everyone had a chance to look at the items within the site plan requirement within the SUP application?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I have as well.
Okay, so we're gonna need to go through the the individual pieces of it to make sure that we are all aware and that we all agree. And if there's disagreement, that we get it noted here. So here we go. So site plan attached using Google Maps satellite image as suggested. Items listed in 21223A1 are discussed below. And our attorney, feel free to jump in at any moment. A, the location of all existing water courses, wooded areas, easements, right-of-ways, street roads, highways, railroads, streams, and building structures, or any other feature directly on the property, beyond the property, such a feature has an effect on the use of said property. His response is the site does not contain any water courses, easements, right-of-ways, streets, roads, highways, railroads, or streams. The existing building, parking, grass, and wooded areas are to remain as is. No changes proposed. Any discussion on that? Any argument on that?
No,
All right, so moving forward, the location, use, and ground area of each proposed building, structure, or any other land use. The building and land use are existing and no changes are proposed or needed. There are no proposed building structures or any other proposed land uses associated with this action. Any comments on that? Location and widths of proposed streets servicing the area. The streets are shown existing. There are no streets proposed. Location, size, and capacity of proposed off-street parking areas. There are 26 spaces existing. All spaces are 10 foot by 20 feet and 24-foot aisles are maintained. There is one handicap space. Overall parking needs will be reduced from 26 to 24 during the day and to 20 during the restaurant operation, shown on the attached parking schedule. Everyone get a chance to look at the parking schedule. I'm going to take that as a, did you get a chance to look at that at all? Anybody, any debate on that? Any topics, any discussion?
Yeah, I thought the parking schedule was pretty clear that there looks like there's enough parking spaces.
Okay. Location and size of the proposed berths. There's a 10-foot by 40-foot space in front of the building for loading. No proposed loading berths. Loading needs will not be permitted since food and supplies for the restaurant will be delivered in one of the catering vans. F, the location and treatment of proposed entrances and exits to public right-of-ways, including the possible utilization of traffic signals, channelization, acceleration and deceleration lanes, additional with any other device necessary to traffic safety and or convenience. There are two-way entrance exits at the site. No changes to existing traffic patterns and usages are proposed. Location and identification of buildings or sites on the premises or within 100 feet of the boundaries of the premises heretofore designated as landmarks pursuant to the provisions of 920 Municipal Code or of an historic district. There are no designated landmarks on or within 100 feet of the premises. The location and identification of proposed open spaces, parks, or other recreational areas in the general location of landscaping and other forestry features. There are no proposed open spaces, parks, or other recreational areas, and the existing landscaping and other forestry features will not be changed. General location and design of stormwater detention facilities in accordance with 212.23D2. There's no stormwater facilities on the premises. There are no proposed impervious surfaces or changes outside the building. The location and design of buffer areas and screening devices to be maintained. No proposed changes to the existing landscape buffer areas or dumpster fence screening those will be maintained. Location of sidewalks, walkways, and all other areas proposed to be devoted to pedestrian use. There are no new pedestrian features proposed, and the existing sidewalk on North Chestnut Street will be maintained. Moving down, general nature and location of public and private utilities, including maintenance facilities. No new utilities proposed. Existing facilities will be maintained. Specific location, size, and signs. And this is the one where we had a bit of an issue. There's a sign posted at the front corner of the property with signs for current tenants. A sign for the restaurant will be placed there. It will be a white background with royal blue lettering saying BCC Restaurant. The site will be the same size as the existing sign, specifically 12 by 42 inches.
Is there any lighting on those signs, or will there be any lighting added?
Mr. Leaguer, would you like to answer that?
There is lighting there. I have not investigated the electricity. I think I might have to reconnect the electric to it, but there are lights already there that have been there when I bought it. The tenants would like me to get the lights working, and I will work on doing that.
Will there need to be a requirement that, well, they are existing lights, so they're not changes in light, so we really can't make any, we really can't impose any new light standards because this is existing lighting that is not changing.
If I may, I don't like lights that point up and that blind drivers. And if those lights aren't good, you would have to put this in writing, but I'm going to put down lights like on the signs, pointing down to light the signs rather than up, which I think is what is there now.
Okay. Well, downward lighting is certainly what all of your immediate neighbors will be using.
Yeah.
Architectural drawings, including floor plans and elevations, and an indication of exterior materials. Building plan, floor plan, and photos showing existing elevations are enclosed with this submittal. Exterior materials consist of painted concrete block and wood siding and stone accents. Additional photos are provided to assist the board, and there were photos, I saw all of them, and to provide documentation for the village files. Environmental assessment form is appropriate. A short form EAF has been completed and submitted with the original application. We have already gone through that. The other information the planning board may deem necessary to ascertain compliance with provision of this chapter. We have not requested any information at the time. So if you scroll on down through there, it does give you the parking schedule, the existing spaces, proposed spaces, and the proposed spaces required. And so it is very standard. Nothing is changing on that. Totals do not change at all. From Google Maps, we do get a site positioning, noting that the site does not contain water courses, has 26 spaces, and it goes through the different items there. A sign will be placed in existing signposts along with other business signs. The sign will be the same size. Following that, we do have a drawing of the building itself, 135 by 50. So that does comprise his building plan submittal. We did get different photographs of the site from Du Bois toward North Chestnut, parking lot from Henry W. Du Bois, parking lot towards corner of Henry W. Du Bois, signposts and other items as well. And then we did get a photo of the south elevation with Henry W. Du Bois. So it appears that we have all the information that is being requested. I'm going to ask our attorney, do you have any comments on this? Anything that we need to be aware of that perhaps we have not?
I'm not aware of anything further, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So it does look like we have everything in line then for that. So I would like to now, I think we have a lot of, do you have a resolution drafted? I believe you did.
Yeah, there's one drafted, and then Rick just put a few comments and like extra language in there pertaining to the granting of a special use. So it's just a little bit different than the normal ones, but it's in the folder.
Okay, I'm in the folder here. It's the unsigned resolution docs. Is that the one?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay. So let's go through this, if you would please, here. So the resolution number PB 21-12, whereas on or about September 15th, 2021, Mr. Phil Leaguer applied for special use permit approval for 1 to 3 Henry W. Du Bois Road, SBL 86.26-2-20, to operate a restaurant in a mixed-use building. The following are significant plans and other submittals that form in part the basis of the planning board's action on this matter. Village of New Paltz special use permit application dated September 15th, 2021, submitted by Mr. Phil Leaguer. Waiver requests dated November 10th, site and floor plan dated November 22nd, 2021. Whereas the proposed project is located in the NDR zoning district, requires special use permit approval. And whereas the applicant submitted a short EAF form on November 16, 2021, the planning board determined the application was administratively complete. It was determined that a referral to Ulster County Planning Board was not required. And on November 6, 2021, the planning board classified the act as a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Whereas a duly noted public hearing was held on December 7th. All those wishing to be heard were given the opportunity to speak. And then where pursuant to the village code, the planning board finds that standards and requirements for this special use set forth, in addition, all other applicable regulations, including but not limited to Village Code 212-40, have been met. And whereas the planning board, after due consideration, has determined to waive all information and documentation otherwise required by the Village Code to be included in the applicant's application and plans, other than the information and documentation provided by the applicant. The reason for such a waiver is that the information and documentation waived would, under the circumstances presented, serve no pertinent purpose for the review and determination of this application by the planning board. Then there's the note that now therefore is hereby resolved that the planning board proposed special use permit for 1-3 Henry W. Du Bois to operate a restaurant and mixed use building as shown in the site plans be approved. So what we want to do now is to get a sense of the board. Is this something that, do we have any other conversation, any debate, anything that we need to cover over this?
I'm pretty satisfied with the application as it is now. I think he addressed all the points.
Okay.
I feel the same way. He addressed everything we asked of him at the last meeting.
Okay, so at this point then, and correct me if I am wrong, what I would like to do then is to get a motion to approve the resolution of special use permit approval.
So motion.
Second,
I second.
so all in favor of the approval?
Aye.
Aye.
So with that information, with member Rachel Lagodka absent and Thomas Peterson absent, the motion is approved. We will have the formal motion to be signed. And Alana is making the edits as we speak. And so this week I will sign the motion, and then we will be it'll be ready to roll, Mr. Leaguer.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Holidays.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
All that good stuff. So that we're done, right? I can move on to the building department.
Yeah, I'll have to sign this, and if there's any monies that are involved, we'll have to take care of that. I don't see that there are, but I'll move to sign this. As soon as Alana has it, she'll get in touch with me. We'll wander over and give my signature. Mr. Attorney, it looks like you have something to say here.
No,
No? Okay. You were leaning in. I thought, okay,
just getting ready for the next application.
there we go. All right. So yeah,
Okay.
I'll be signing this this week, Phil. So you'll be ready to go over and visit the building department.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Okay. So that takes care of our first item, and our next item is PB 2014 85 North Chestnut Street with Rodney Serra. In the notes that we have, we've gone through the summary. We've gotten the variances. We've had gateway meetings. We've walked our way through seeker. Variances were granted, and now we are at a another point here. So in the notes that I have from our attorney, it says that it does not appear the board has discussed the UCPB required modification to provide infrastructure necessary to develop electric vehicle charging stations. If the board's going to require such to be incorporated into the approval, it should state, is not going to require such to be incorporated. It should state its reasoning on the record and make a motion not to require such infrastructure prior to reviewing the resolution. Such a motion must be approved by a supermajority, which would be 4 members, and we do not have 4 members here. The board should also confirm they are not adopting the Ulster County Planning Board's advisory modification that a master signage plan should be submitted because the signage details provided are sufficient. So, we had a little note from Mr. Willingham and Mr. Serra regarding the proposed charging station. So, Mr. Attorney, you want to kind of walk us through that?
Did you say attorney?
Yep.
Okay, so the Ulster County Planning Board had as one of its requirements language concerning electric vehicle charging stations. It was a little bit ambiguous as to what was required. It said infrastructure to develop. It's a little bit ambiguous. Infrastructure normally is whatever is necessary to have that particular service or item. And you would think that that would include the pump itself, but it used an odd phrase, to develop. So I'm not quite sure what they meant. But the board either has to try to divine what was meant by that and figure out whether or not you're going to require that. Or if not, you don't have enough people to override it at this meeting, so it'd have to be pushed to another meeting. So supposing, if you want to get it done tonight, that you are going to comply with that recommendation, and it's just a matter of what do they mean by having infrastructure to develop the electric vehicle charging station.
So, Andy, you have worked with several other people or applicants in different villages and towns regarding this issue, and from what I understand, you would like to look at a compromise rather than to place the pumps actively there. You would like to put the infrastructure, including the conduit and all the materials necessary to place a pump, but to not place the actual pump. Is that kind of is that correct?
Before Andy answers and may box himself into a corner unnecessarily or unintentionally, is that it's not a compromise. there is no compromise. Under the Ulster County Planning Board, they gave a recommendation. It's a mandatory recommendation. You have to follow it unless you override it. So
Okay.
it's not like you can negotiate. It's something that you have, and if you don't override it, you must comply with it in order for you to have jurisdiction to vote.
Okay,
So it may mean that you interpret it some way that means something, that may or may not be what they intended, but it's how you read it. And then you can say that you've complied with it based upon your reading of it. But I just want to make the record clear that you're not negotiating something different than what the Ulster County Planning Board has recommended.
okay, thank you. So it is a mandatory recommendation.
But do we know clearly what the infrastructure is that they're requiring?
No,
So we should really get a more clearer understanding of what they're determining as infrastructure. Maybe it is just conduits that you could run a wire to, but it's a guess unless we find out exactly what it is that they want in the way of infrastructure.
Zach, what do you-
Yeah, I think the way we have seen before in other codes where you can run, you run the conduits to the parking spaces, which is a large part of the work. And then you could kind of pop in the charging station and just run the wire through the conduits. It's actually in the code that way in some towns. I thought that's what they meant, the way they worded it, but I think talking with Roddy that we don't want this to hold this up for another meeting.
Okay.
So I think, right, unless you disagree, Roddy, we like to put in, you gotta, yeah. You get off mute there.
I agree with you. We'll just go and install the pumps at the same time. I don't want to hold this up anymore.
All right.
So
I mean,
we'll,
we'll agree with the board what they want, which is install new pumps.
so what we're proposing is a, the same one they just, the town of New Paltz just did over at the new court, which is a double pump. It goes in between the two spots, and both spots can feed off of it. And I did send a sketch to John, but I haven't, the rest of the board hasn't seen it.
Do you have that? You want to pop that up on the screen
Yeah.
share?
Okay, so here's the building, and I couldn't really put it over here because it was a blocked sidewalk. So I think we're gonna put it over next, in between these two spots next to the bike pedestrian trail, and the conduits through here. And this says future location, but we'll change that to location of, this is the model number that we used on the one in the town.
Okay. Very good. So instead of having a different interpretation, we will go with a mandatory recommendation. You will be including the pump in there. You have a note, you will change the note on the plan, and that issue then is resolved. Lana will make sure that that's taken care of in the resolution along with our attorney. The
it'll
next,
have to be changed in, Alana, I don't know whether you want to do it or me, but it would have to be changed in two spots. On page 4, on the, under the GML 239, you would have to say that the planning board will condition, that's that other alternative in there that's in bold italics now, saying that it will condition this resolution on the applicant amending the site plan to provide for, as I understand it, one double electric vehicle charging station. Is that correct? Okay, and then have to add that to
One double.
one ONEDOUBLE, as I understand it.
Okay,
And you may want to clarify by saying servicing 2 parking spaces.
Yeah,
Okay.
dual port.
Thank you, that's better. Servicing 2 parking spaces.
dual port. Okay, can I read it back to you, just to make sure it's right? Planning board will condition this resolution of approval on the applicant amending the site plans to provide for 1 dual port vehicle charging station servicing 2 parking spaces prior to the signing of the site plans by the planning board chairperson.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Good. The next item is that the board should confirm they are not adopting the Ulster County Planning Board's advisory modification that a master signage plan should be submitted because the signage details provided are sufficient. So we simply need a confirmation on that. No formal board action is needed to act contrary to this modification. So I think we are all in agreement from our meetings before that we are not adopting the UCPB's advisory modification that a master signage plan should be submitted. And the reasoning is because the signage details provided are sufficient. Is there any disagreement with that? Move on, or?
No, I agree.
I agree.
All right, so the next thing we need to do is to review a draft of a resolution of approval, which has been provided by our attorney. We've modified it with the requirement of the dual port charging station. And let me move here.
Rick, did you say the language about the charging station was in 2 places in the resolution, or it's just on page 4?
No, it'll also have to be, page 4 says that it will be conditioned, and so we need to add the condition, which
Okay,
now is on number 24,
okay,
page 13. So we'll have to have similar language there about prior to signing the plans, the site plan shall be amended to provide for 1 dual port electric charging vehicle charging station servicing 2 parking spaces, I guess.
Yeah, that's not something we have to do now. We're doing them one by one as they come.
So with that in mind,
Yep. And then everything else is in February.
so if we can have whoever is active there to mute for.
Have any dates for anybody yet?
So with that in mind, want to get a sense of the board, any modifications we need to make beyond those so that we can, at our next meeting, sign off on the resolution of approval and move this application forward, or?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think that if you have the resolution before you, we've modified it or about to modify the resolution with respect to that language that we've agreed upon. But you have the specific conditions. You can read the specific conditions, and the resolution could be approved this evening if you so desire.
I think that's a good idea. Okay, so resolution of approval, site plan and special use permits for Rodney, Serra, Chestnut Square. That gives an application summary, an identification of the property. And then it lists an identification of the plans and submittal, the application, the FEAF, form part 1 and 2, FAAF part 3 for Chestnut Square, negative declaration, special use permit narrative, affordable housing documents, renderings, plans for Chestnut Square, including the site plan, existing conditions, and demolition plan, grading and utility, landscaping, lighting, erosion and sediment control plans, as well as site details. It also has the architectural drawings, including the different floors and the exterior screening and the elevations. Application history is there, the procedural history, including the date of the application, the seeker, the GML referral, and the planning board's required modifications. Is this where we're going to have the other modifications in there, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, we've already fixed the part concerning GML. And then the findings are things that you are required to find in connection with the various approvals given.
Right, it says here, with respect to the provision of infrastructure necessary to develop electrical vehicle charging stations, the planning board will condition this resolution of approval on the applicant amending the site plans to provide for one dual port vehicle. So it is in there. So this does give all of the conditions, signage details to meet the standards, planning board requiring NISDOT to approve the proposed access as a condition of the resolution. Incorporation of the use of heat pumps in the project. Ulster County Planning Board contained the following advisory comment. Planning Board considered the advisory comment and declined to require the master signage plan. Public hearing convened on November 16th and closed on the same date. Variances, it lists a variance to allow a peak roof height of, does not cover the zoning board of appeals granted the applicant an area variance to allow a peak roof height of is 44 feet 7 inches. It might be a little grammatical error there, but
Yeah, it should be of rather than is.
that's fine. So
You see that, Alana?
yes, she just corrected it.
Okay.
So findings, the planning board has found that the site plan conforms to the village's adopted comprehensive master plan and village code. There'll be no unreasonable interference with traffic on surrounding streets, and the site plan includes adequate storm detention facilities. Planning boards reviewed conservation features, aesthetics, landscaping, and impact on surrounding development in the entire village in making this determination of approval. Planning board specifically finds that the project complies with the applicable NDR district regulations, including but not limited to building design standards, landscaping requirements, including adequate interior and exterior parking lot landscape. Planning board has found that the proposed special uses are in harmony with the zoning code and will not adversely affect the neighborhood.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
these findings are rather detailed, tracking your specific language in the code that based upon all of these actions that they wanted, you needed to make certain findings. You've all had this before you. There's no requirement that you read through them. You can if you want, but there's no requirement. Typically, you read the specific conditions that begin on page 9, but it's really whatever you want to do.
Okay, well, we'll skip down to the resolution of approval and the specific conditions. So the resolution of approval, now therefore the planning board of the Village of New Paltz, New York hereby resolves to issue site plan and special use permit approval to the application of the lemon squeeze, but only.
That's incorrect.
Yeah, that's incorrect.
Lemon squeeze. That's
So we'll just change that.
Should I change to Chestnut Square? So
Please.
we've been,
That's fine. You can use whatever designation that we've used previously.
Okay. Approval to the application of Chestnut.
Good catch, Sharon.
What's that?
Said good catch.
I had like a weird moment where I read that and I was extremely.
Yeah, so did I.
It took a moment for it to all fit, but only as specifically set forth on the plans as identified above or as subsequently revised in accordance with this resolution and as further conditioned as set forth below. The planning board chair is hereby authorized to sign such plans and other documents evidencing this approval only in strict accordance with all of the terms and conditions of this resolution of approval. Specific conditions. The approval is subject to a final engineering review of the plan. Plan shall not be signed until receipt of a letter from the village engineer certifying that all deficiencies noted in its memo of December 14th, 2020 have been remedied to its satisfaction, and that it has found the plan submitted for signature to be in proper order. This approval is subject to the applicant's compliance with all outstanding issues set forth in the memoranda of the planning board's traffic consultant, Provident Design Engineering. The plan shall not be signed until receipt of a letter from PDE certifying that all issues noted in its memorandum have been remedied to its satisfaction.
If I may
Prior to-
interrupt for a second. There are some boards that do this as a matter of course. You don't normally have traffic engineers in all of your applications, nor do you have the planning board engineer weigh in. You did in this instance. So it may simply be that Alana would notify both PDE and the village engineer of the need for this the need for their respective letters in order for you to be able to sign the plans.
Okay.
Is that all right with you, Alana?
Yeah, that's fine. My other, I don't know if it matters, but PD recently had a merger, so their name is different. Do you want to change the name? It's still Provident, but I think it's a little different. Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay, then no
I
worries.
think it would cause more concern because the memo that they gave, I think, was PDE.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Number 3, prior to signing the plans, the applicant shall address all outstanding issues raised by the fire department in an email dated November 9th, 2021. Approval is subject to the NISDOT approval of the proposed access in substantially the same location and configuration as shown on the plans prior to commencing construction. If the access approved by the New York State Department of Transportation is materially different in either the location or configuration from what is shown on the approved site plan, the applicant must return to the planning board for amended site plan approval. This approval is subject to the New York State Department of Transportation's approval of the 7 on-street parking spaces shown on the plan. If NISDOT eliminates any of such on-street parking spaces, the applicant must return to the planning board for approval of alternative parking locations to support the required parking count. Approval subject to NISDOT approval of all work within the NISDOT right-of-way. Prior to the signing of the plans, the applicant shall submit an owner authorization from the owner of the adjacent property to the south. Prior to the signing of the plans, the applicant shall submit proof of filing with the Ulster County Clerk of an access easement in such form as is acceptable to the planning board attorney, granting the applicant access over the adjacent property to the south designated in the village tax parcel. Prior to the signing of the plans, the applicant shall submit proof to the building department that the trail access easement agreement entered into has been filed. Applicant shall deposit required cash payment in lieu of land reservation with the village clerk pursuant to village code in the amount set by the village board of trustees, with a 50% waiver for the 2 affordable housing units pursuant to the code. 2 other proposed housing units, one bedroom unit and 1 2-bedroom unit shall be reserved for affordable housing in accordance with the village code. Housing units shall be distributed throughout the building as shown by the applicant's affordable housing plan. Any changes in the designated affordable housing units shall require site plan amendment and an amended covenant and restriction in the deeds. Affordable housing units shall be constructed to the same quality standards as market rate units. Exterior finishes shall be indistinguishable from all other units. It talks about the different appliances and internal hardware which shall be permitted. The building inspector shall make a determination that the affordable housing units as constructed meet the standards of the village code. Required landscaping shall be permanently maintained in a healthy growing condition at all times. All existing and proposed trees and landscaping shall be maintained in a healthy and vibrant manner in perpetuity. Trees and other landscaping near the adjacent roadway must be maintained and pruned in such a fashion so as not to impede traffic sight distances. All non-residential uses shall require individual special use permits. According to the schedule for the following non-residential uses that are approved and permitted by the resolution. And it lists them there. Its approval includes a special use permit to allow 3 first-floor apartments facing away from Route 32 in that are not accessible units. Any first non-accessible units shall require individual special use permits. Planning board's acceptance of the lighting design shown on the plan is premised on the representation of the applicant that the lighting will not cause a glare or other deleterious or intrusive effects on adjoining properties or roadway traffic. No illuminated signs shall be permitted. Shop front shall be glazed pursuant to the current New York State Energy Conservation Code. Street furniture and waste receptacles shall be maintained by the developer or managing agent of the property. No encroachments on neighboring properties. Excuse me, no encroachments on neighboring properties are being authorized or approved by the resolution. All conditions attached to the grant of area variances issued by the Village of New Paltz Zoning Board of Appeals and filed in the office of clerk on that date are made part of this approval, and this approval is subject to the same as if those conditions were set forth at length. Prior to signing of the plans, the site plan shall be amended to provide for 1 dual port vehicle charging station servicing 2 parking spaces. Then it goes into the general conditions that it's the resolution.
They're the ones that you normally have, so you don't typically read through all the general conditions. It's in all of your resolutions. The one thing that I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, is that obviously there's more specific conditions than normal, given this particular project and the need for them. But there's quite a number of them that say prior to the signing of the plans, this has to happen.
Right.
Some of those are people have to write to you, some of which I have to tell you that a deed has been, is okay as the language. But you should read through, before you sign the plans, you should read through all of those. There's probably 8 or 9 that say prior to the signing of the plans.
Right.
And just make sure that that's accomplished.
Thank you. So with the general conditions the same as the others, like a motion to approve this resolution.
So motion.
Second,
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. So the motion has been approved. The resolution has been approved.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you very much to the board for all the time you spent on this, and I think it's going to be a nice addition to the village.
Andy
like
and
to-
Roddy, I think it's going to be a great addition, and thanks for all your hard work and for your very professionalism.
Thanks to the board, thanks to the lawyers, thanks to everybody helped with this project. And it's going to be a good thing for the town. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Have a good evening.
Have a good evening, sir.
Thank you. Alana, you'll keep me apprised of the progress of the different items coming in, that so we can make sure that they're all.
Yeah, I'll make some kind of like checklist or spreadsheet or something and share it with you, and we'll just check things off as we get them.
Great. That works well. Very good. So now the next item before us is PB 2115-27 Millbrook Road. It's an application for site plan approval to construct a new single-family residence on a 1.9 acre vacant parcel in the R1 zoning district. This is a type 2 action, provided the property is an approved building lot, which Corey should be able to confirm. Alana, has he confirmed that this is an approved building lot?
Yes.
Okay. So then this is indeed a type 2 action. The referral to county is required. Property is within 500 feet of the town boundary and does not fall under the exemption for residential site plans because an increase in parking is required by local statute. also because it is within 500 feet of the town boundary. Notice of the public hearing must go to the town clerk at least 10 days prior to the hearing. Is the applicant for the 27 Millbrook Road here?
I actually don't see Floyd, who was here for him last time. I can say about the county, I forwarded that around. They had a no county impact determination.
Okay. All right, so really the next thing we need to do is we need to set a public hearing and make sure that Floyd is aware that the site plan shows a shared driveway. Don't know whether it's existing or approved. It needs to be a common driveway easement, a shared maintenance agreement for all the lots that are sharing the driveway. However, if this easement and agreement is to be reviewed and approved by the planning board, we need our attorney to review that, and so there does need to be escrows from the applicant to pay for such a review. I am going to ask that we set up an escrow so that we can provide monies for our attorney to review the common driveway easement and shared maintenance agreement, as they must be filed with the county clerk to be enforceable against future owners. So we'll need to do that.
Do you know what amount you want to set for that?
No, I really don't.
What do you think, Rick?
It really depends on how it comes in and whether or not it has to go back and forth many times. But I think
Yeah.
a conservative figure that shouldn't ever be breached is $500.
Okay.
So Alana, when they submit that, if you could just forward it on to me, and I'll go ahead and review it.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just send all these issues and stuff to Floyd, I guess,
Okay.
tomorrow.
So now we need to set a public hearing. It'd be nice if he were here so he could agree to when we are setting public hearing. But what would be the first public hearing that he could make possibly, Alana?
Well, we have like the similar issue that happens where if you were to set it for the 21st, you'd have to get everything out by like the end of this week, and he's not really here to confirm he wants to do that. So I would almost say you should just set it for the first one in January, and he wasn't here, so.
Let's do that.
Okay.
What's that date of the first one in January?
The 4th is the first meeting.
Okay, so let's set it for January 4th.
And also, Alana, I'm sure you noticed, but this needs the special notice to
Yeah.
the town clerk. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so that's really all we can do.
Just do a motion, John, for the public hearing.
So yeah, let's do the motion. Anything else that anyone feels need to be done? Any comment from the other members of the planning board? Okay,
I made some comments last time we looked at this, but I guess he hasn't made any revisions to the site plan, so we can discuss them next
Okay.
time.
okay, because yeah, we can't really do much.
Zach, I think I wrote down your comments in the last minute, so when I send Floyd the other stuff from Rick's memo, I'll maybe remind him about the things that you wanted. I think I wrote them down.
Sure. Yeah, I thought I saw them in the minutes too.
Okay, then, I'd like to get a motion to set the public hearing for January the 4th, 2022.
So motion.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we have set the motion, we set the public hearing. We'll communicate with Floyd about the Zach's comments about the escrow needing to be done and the shared agreement. And there we go. And if he has any questions, please get in touch with me, Alana. We can certainly work through them. So moving on to PB 2116, 20 Mill Rock Road. Is the applicant here?
Yeah, he's here.
I am, yes.
Okay, and I'm sorry, the applicant is. Okay, got it. Okay, so this is an application to construct a 24 by 10 ground level composite deck to the rear of an existing house. You want to give us a little more descriptions, any other information regarding that?
Sure. I mean, so from my understanding, it's a pretty straightforward project. We're looking at it's actually just outside of this wall right here. But it's going over a drainage ditch at the back of the house, basically the width of the house. So it wouldn't go beyond either side and wouldn't violate the variances that are set on either setback, or sorry, the setbacks that will require a variance from the planning board. But really just to give an additional space on the back side of the house that also would prevent, having to step down into a gully where the water basically would have like a French drain that drains off on the side. But there's really not, unless there's specific questions, I'm happy to answer them, but it's really just another usable space in the house in the backyard.
Okay. That's, that gives us a good explanation. So this is a type 2 action according to seeker. It is exempt from referral. We did hold a public hearing tonight, and so now, are there any questions from any members of the board? No? Okay.
So this is not the deck that's in that photo that's visible from the street. It has not been constructed yet, and it's in the rear of the house. Okay. I was confused there. Yeah, I see the site plan now. All right, yeah, no questions.
Okay. Give me just a moment here, folks. Alana, do you have, I'm looking in his folder here and I don't see a resolution that's.
Yep, it's right there under the public hearing folder for 20. Make sure you're in 20 Mill Rock Road and not in a
20 Mill Rock.
27 Millbrook. Yeah, they're like right on top of each other.
My apologies there. So this is a resolution of site plan approval for 20 Mill Rock Road. The description that October 19th, Mr. Andrew Ing applied for the site plan approval for 20 Mill Rock Road. construct a 24 by 10 ground level composite deck in the rear of the existing home. Village of New Paltz site plan is present, and then we go through the different points, and including public hearing that was done, classifying the action, no referral of the plan, administratively complete, short SEAF. We come to the point which says, now therefore it is hereby resolved by the Village of New Paltz Planning Board that the proposed site approval for 20 Millbrook Road construct a 24 by 10 ground level composite deck to the rear of an existing home as shown. The site plan dated October 2021 is hereby approved subject to the following conditions. The village's right to enter upon the property for purposes of inspecting and payment of all fees, and final site plan as submitted. So I would like then to get a motion to approve the resolution, the site plan approval for 20 Millbrook Road.
So motion.
Application PB 2116. So Dennis made the motion. Second, please.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So the motion has been approved. The resolution has been approved. So Mr. Ing, this is completed, and I will, once the fees have been paid and the other payment of all fees and final site plan as submitted, then I will be happy to sign this. Alana will make me aware of it, and then we'll get you rolling. So there you are.
Great. Thanks for all the help and the attention.
You're very welcome. Okay. So the next application is PB 2117, 62 South Chestnut. Is the applicant here?
Yes,
Okay, Mr. Moore. You want to give us a brief summary of the application?
sure. The house I bought was an 1887 house, which was converted to student housing. There were 5 rooms in there for students, no covered off-street parking. I'm restoring it to relatively original condition. And the garage that's there is actually 120 years old. It's ruined. It's got no foundation. So I'm proposing a 24 by 50-foot building in the back of the house, which will hold 2 cars and have some storage in the back there. And in order to fulfill the 30% impermeable limit, I propose to raise the garage and take the asphalt driveway material off-site and replace it with gravel.
Okay.
Can everyone see the site plan? Should I share this? Site plan?
I picked up the packet. I have it, Zach.
Okay. So can I ask what are you planning on replacing the asphalt driveway with?
Gravel.
just gravel. Okay.
Just gravel. As it stands now, the the runoff on the property is predominantly on the south limb of the U-shaped driveway. And the water actually goes under the asphalt onto the sidewalk and causes ice buildup. So I want to have a more permeable, absorptive surface, number one. Number two, yeah, I mean, I've lived with gravel driveways for 40 years and I know how to maintain them.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that it still would not be a permeable surface. I mean, the code defines impermeable surface as including gravel or other, compacted aggregate. So it seems to me like this proposed garage is a little too large for the site. And to meet that lot coverage number, it should be scaled down a little.
What is the lot coverage that you calculate?
Well, the building itself is 1,200 square feet. The including the house, porch, walks, the new 24 by 50 foot building, and the old garage. It's 2,766 square feet. The site is 10,036 square feet. So removing the walks, the asphalt and the old garage would bring us below the 30% limit. In addition, I plan to let most of the undeveloped backyard revert to meadow. And meadows tend to absorb 30 to 40% more water than grass yards.
So the calculation by removing the barn, as you said you're going to do, gets you below the 30%, is that correct?
Correct.
But Corey would have to make a determination, as Zach had noted, of whether or not the gravel, the compacted gravel, is going to go ahead and constitute an impermeable surface and therefore counts as coverage.
I had a preliminary discussion with Corey and we discussed the type of gravel that he thought was appropriate, and I'll comply with that.
But well, there's one thing of talking with Corey about whether or not the gravel was appropriate, and the code requirement that even appropriate gravel, if compacted, counts as impervious coverage. And so that would have to go into the calculation. Unless Corey is going to give you a different definition that somehow it's not compacted gravel.
Well, what is compacted gravel?
It's going to be up to Corey.
Yeah.
Okay.
My understanding from this lot coverage calculation that you have here is essentially if the driveway is considered impermeable surface, with this new garage, you're at 40% lot coverage, where the zoning is 30% max.
I'm aware of that.
So that would, yeah.
Require different material or a
Yeah.
variance.
So we really need to have Corey weigh in on this.
Yeah, and maybe there's some other kind of permeable paver, some other solution that he would suggest?
Well, there are these perforated plastic dividers that if you, at Dia Beacon and other sites where they want to have parking on grassed-in areas, they put down these perforated sections and then fill them with gravel. And that way it doesn't really compact the way just plain gravel would be compacted, because the plastic actually supports the weight of the vehicle. So that would be one alternative.
That's again, if Corey interprets it that way, because many of those sort of hatched plastic or harder surfaces
Yeah.
many times get compacted and don't drain at all and end up to be impermeable surfaces. So it would have to be something that Corey approves of, and it's installed in a way that the permeability actually works going forward.
Right. Reasonable.
So we're kind of at a point now where we need to get our building inspector to weigh in on that. So we're gonna have to see what Corey says, so.
I think there's a number of things, Mr. Chairman, that I had noted in the memo to you
Right.
that require Corey to weigh in on, or the applicant to further describe, such as whether or not this is actually a legal use of the garage, whether or not it's a home occupation. If it's a home occupation, then it's subject to different regulations. One thing that I think the applicant can answer is that there was some inconsistency, because it said that the garage will not be habitable, not have water or heating installed, yet the EAF indicates that the action will connect to water supply and wastewater utilities.
No, that if that's in the application, that's incorrect. There's going to be
Okay.
no water. There's going to be no drainage,
No water, no toilet, no.
no
anything like
toilet,
that.
no connection with the sewer system.
All right, so we can put that on as a condition.
Okay. The other issue that you wanted to look at was Corey to weigh in on the legality of the use of the garage for a sculpture workspace. Density control schedule sets forth the required bulk dimensions, but should have a column that sets forth proposed bulk dimensions. To confirm the location of the accessory structure complies with requirements. Specifically, it can't be closer to the principal building than 12 feet or a distance equal to the height of the accessory building.
So one of those things is when the plans are resubmitted, right now they just have requirements for various things such as lot coverage and other bulk requirements.
Right.
It's supposed to have both what is required and what is proposed, so you can make it easy for you to determine whether or not there's any issues with respect to those requirements.
Right. And what's a list of proposals likely to be, or is that to be determined by Corey in conjunction with the planning board?
Well, the proposed is what you are proposing.
But the modifications that the planning board wants?
Well, it depends on, for instance, lot coverage
Mhm.
is 30%, as I recall.
Right.
And you need to be putting down in a table, what are you proposing? Now, you believe that you're proposing less than that, but that is also dependent upon what Corey determines as to the driveway material, because it may be above that.
Mhm.
So it's just as to all of these density, the way that the bulk tables on your plans usually would be is what is required for each of those things and what are you proposing?
Mhm. Okay.
We also have some issues with respect to the location of this garage because for an accessory structure, it can't be closer to the principal building than 12 feet or a distance equal to the height of the accessory building, whichever is greater, and can't be closer to the side and rear lot lines than 12 feet or a distance equivalent to the height of the accessory building. And we need to know all of those dimensions. This is, if you want to look at the code, it's 212-28A 2 and 3. So there are various requirements, and you should be putting those in a bulk table to showing what the requirement is and what your proposed is.
But on this, respectfully, on the site plan, I have the setbacks on the drawing of the site plan, and the distance, the scale clearly shows that the distance is, greater than 10
Did you
feet.
take this, what you're calling setbacks, did you take that from this 212-28A 2 and 3, or just general setbacks of a principal building?
No, this was done by the surveyor who did the survey for the.
Okay, well, my question would be, was the surveyor then taking it from the general setbacks for buildings, principal buildings, or was your surveyor taking it from the specific provision that deals with accessory structures? They're not the same.
Just for clarification, what's the difference between a primary and a secondary structure in terms of setbacks?
For instance,
I assumed the 12.5 feet on the sides and 25 on the back was adequate.
It could be. I just don't know because I haven't done a calculation as to the distance of it's closer to the building than 12 feet or a distance equal to the length of the accessory building, whichever is graded. So you say 12.5 feet, but I don't know if you calculate out the height of the structure, whether or not that would be more than the 12 feet and therefore may be a problem.
So, okay, just so that I understand clearly, the building is going to be 10 feet at the eaves. So what if I understand you correctly, at the center, it's going to be higher by a couple of feet. Now, that has to be greater than the setback.
Well, what it says is, for instance, on this first one,
Yeah.
it can't be closer to the principal building, right, which is your
Yes.
residence,
Yes,
than 12 feet or the distance equal to the height of the accessory building, whichever is greater. Looks like you
Gotcha.
probably
yeah, I think.
comply. Just let me finish.
Sure.
I think you probably comply with that, but there's no measurement on this drawing showing the distance between the principal building and the proposed accessory structure.
Right.
Also, I don't know, and you'd have to get from Corey whether that distance is measured from the actual principal building or from the covered porch. I don't know how Corey would want that measured.
I believe looking at.
Oh, I see. You do have 12.5 setback
Yeah,
from the house.
yes,
Okay.
No.
And your building is 10? No, it's
10
what
at
do
the eaves plus a couple of feet for the center.
well, we need to know what that height is in the
Yes.
center.
Okay. I believe, just looking at the picture itself, it'll comply with the setback from the porch. And I believe the side setbacks are adequate too, but I can put those numbers down. And
Yeah,
make-
if you put the numbers down,
Yeah.
because, and then calculate it out, talk with Corey as to whether or not the distance is from the porch or from the existing residence building proper.
Right, okay.
And I believe those are my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
You can classify the action as a type 2 action under seeker.
Okay, so we have a list of comments and requirements that we need answered before we can do a whole lot more. You have those now, I believe. Mr. Moore, so that you can move forward. So,
Alana, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman, but Alana, there's nothing really in my notes on my comment memo that are truly attorney-client privilege
Okay,
in this application. And so if you want to cut and paste those and give it to the applicant and Corey
yeah,
so that they both know what's going on.
sure.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll get it to you tomorrow morning.
And then the one thing that was also raised is, as you raised, Mr. Chairman, is whether or not this use is actually permitted for the workspace proposed, or whether or not it's a home occupation, and then that has to have some other issues addressed.
all right,
Well-
then, so the next thing is to classify this action as a type 2 under seeker. So we need a motion to classify this action as type 2 under seeker.
No motion.
Second,
A second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Can you just give me clarification what type 2 action under seeker is?
Not going to require you to go through a full seeker process.
It means that the state has determined, and this planning board is recognizing, that by the size of this structure, that it will not have any significant adverse environmental impacts, and therefore you don't have to do any further seeker review. It's a good thing.
Much more detailed answer, but it's a good thing.
Okay,
Okay, so the next thing then we'll look at is to set a public hearing. I am anticipating that it's going to take you a while to work with Corey to get the information that you need and the calculations that you need. So I'm uncertain if you would be able to get all of the information back for the public hearing of the next possible time. So with that in mind, I'd like to have, unless you disagree, I'd like to have the public hearing to be set for the first meeting in January.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I'd suggest that you might consider is that depending upon these answers from Corey, it may or may not need a variance if it stays the same way, or the plan may have to change as a result. So another possibility is waiting until you get the resubmitted plans and then decide whether or not it's ready for a public hearing. But it's up to you.
Well, we could get the information back possibly by our next December meeting.
you know, it, just for clarification, the size of the building has to do with, you know, I do woodworking, I do sculpting. So I've got a lot of equipment that I have in there, and the woodworking and sculpting is just a hobby. I just retired.
So that answers it, whether it is a primary occupation there. So that will certainly give you some different requirements than if it were. But you're definitely going to need to get in touch with Corey. Work through. What's that?
Is this just a hobby of yours, or do you actually sell what you make in there?
No, I don't sell the woodwork or the sculpting. It's just creativity.
Got it.
So can you reach out to Corey in the within the next week or so to try to resolve some of these points, Mr. Moore?
Yeah. Oh, no. I'll get to him as soon as you get the information to him. You know, the list of requirements.
Yeah, I'll email both of them tomorrow morning.
Great. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. So with that, perhaps we can get an update from you at our next meeting. And then we can set the public hearing, and if for some reason it does not appear that you're going to be able to get all the information that's necessary, then we can delay it. But so let's wait and set the public hearing, because we can always do that at our next meeting without any problem. We don't have to set it tonight, and that'll give you some not quite the pressure and the deadline to get all the information gathered as quickly as possible. So it'll give you a little bit of a time to work on it.
Okay. Thank you for your consideration.
You're very welcome. And Corey's a nice guy. He's pretty easygoing guy. Difficult to find sometimes because he's quite busy, but so I would start on him as early as you can tomorrow.
Okay, I will.
Very good. Okay. Well, thank you very much, and we will see you in the next meeting.
Okay, very good.
So that brings us then to PB 2113, 54 South Mannheim. You have been here before, but what we'd like to do is first off get a brief summary from our attorney on the application, if you would, please.
Well, you know, it's having an approval of a site plan subdivision, sort of a lot line revision consolidation involving 3 parcels. It's an unlisted action under seeker. So you have to determine whether or not there is any other involved agencies. There's none that was listed. If you don't believe there's any other involved agencies that are agencies that require approval of this project, then you can assume lead agency, type it as unlisted, and we'll have to make a determination of significance at another time. GML referral is required, so we have to wait for any action until we get the referral back, after the referral is made, to get the report back, rather. Now, and what you normally do, since this is in connection with a senior citizen development, is that you normally ask the applicant for a narrative addressing each of the both general special use permit standards in 212-40 and also addressing the specific standards applicable to senior citizen development special use, which is 212-41K. Also, the applicant should provide an affordable housing plan. And I had noticed to you in my memo about it's a very odd configuration. What they're appending to tack on to a particular parcel, it doesn't seem to be really used by that parcel. When you look at the layout of it, is obviously done in order to have greater acreage to allow for greater coverage. But simply because that's permissible in the sense that it's not illegal, you also have to consider when you are doing subdivisions that the plats are done in a way that's going to plan for in a very usual and usual manner that allows further subdivisions if necessary, further uses, further access. And this, it's hard to understand that this would really fit into that orderly, efficient, and economical development of the property when you have this sort of appendage onto that. But that's something for this board to consider. There's an error, I believe, on some of the sheets noting that the single-family home will remain on proposed lot 2, but it's actually, I believe, supposed to be remaining on proposed lot 1. There's a bicycle rack detail in SD2, but there's no bicycle parking calculation to determine whether or not that bike rack is going to be sufficient. It's going to need a SWIP. There's also, looks like it's a misidentified one of the parcels. It says 86.45-714. I think it's 86.42. And you have some LLCs that are signed, but they need to be printing their name and identify their role with respect to the owner authorizations. That's a brief overview, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So there is your punch list of things that we're going to need to get done before our next meeting or as we move forward here. So for tonight, what we'd like to do is just kind of get a narrative from you, get a little bit of information about what you're planning to do. Have that opportunity to give us a little, to enlighten us a bit more. So please feel free, whoever would like to speak on behalf of the Mannheim project.
Yeah, hi, Keith Leibolt. First, any questions regarding the project or anything you'd like me to speak directly about, or just an overview from why we're doing this?
Just an overview.
trying to.
Let's start with that.
Sure. So my father is also on this call, also Keith. We are land developers and been a member of this community for a long time. This parcel came up and fits perfectly for what we thought and think is an actual need in our community for senior housing. And so we've been trying to get this parcel to that end. And we viewed this from the start as a real community goal. We can discuss that in depth. I mean, for us, it's mission driven. If this isn't something the community thinks is needed, we're not here to really ruffle feathers. We believe it is. Census data shows it. We've been attempting to work through the right channels. We've been to the HPC twice for their feedback, which we've tried to bring in so far, and started with the village to make sure this would be received. So that's where we are. We wanted to, this is our next stop. So here we are.
What we're proposing is 33 units of 100% affordable senior housing. We've been working with UACT. I see Susan Denton is with us. We have Willingham Engineering with us and AJ Coppola Architects. We think we've been through the proper vetting with the local historic agencies. We've gone before the town board just for a quick review. We've sent some financial models out to UACT and the supervisor just to show him what we're looking at. We will be seeking pilot for the project as it to be a 100% affordable project. The rents are substantially below market. Based on what we've read in the census data, this is a real need in our community. It's, in our view, appropriately sized. It's not an overly large project. It's about as small as you can make it and still get the funding needed to get it off the ground. And we've been very transparent with our model, both our financial model and our layout. There's a number of requirements that we have to stay within in order to go to the Department of Housing and Community Renewal to get the funding we need. So there are some design constraints, apartment sizes, common area space. There's energy efficiency requirements. And then there are fiscal constraints of what's allowed and not allowed. We got some preliminary comments from the community and we've altered the floor layouts to reflect those comments. And we're here before this board, hopefully to begin to move the ball forward.
How many total occupants are you going to have there?
Well, there's 33 apartments. There's 31 one-bedrooms and 2 two-bedroom apartments. So obviously 2 seniors could live in a 1-bedroom, and the state kind of limits how many 2-bedrooms you can have in a senior affordable project. But we, normally there are seniors that might have a disabled child with them, or there might be a family member to help care for them. So they allow for some 2-bedroom units.
And you're going before the Board of Trustees to ask for a pilot, is that correct?
Yes. So we've worked with UAC on that as a start, just to review the requirements. Some of the members of the board have experience with the various state agencies. And we just had a lovely call with them today for about an hour to discuss the needs that they see as well as what we see. And we'll be having another conversation with the town board, I think, and the mayor and the supervisor, Mr. Rogers, shortly.
And I could quickly go over the site plan, if that helps.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Let's take a look at that.
Okay, here is New York State Route 32, right across from the college. Ridgeview Apartments here. You guys have already seen this about 5 months ago, but there's more detail here. Plan is to subdivide off this existing house off Hasbrook Place. This is the lot configuration that Rick was discussing to include the senior development. There's an existing building in here, a small parking lot. The parking meets the requirements. It's actually more parking than the code requires. We thought they would need a little bit extra for guests. We've got some preliminary stormwater in here, some garden areas we're planning in the front. We have a walkable path around the full perimeter of the building that will serve as emergency access to the back as well. And there's a large patio that AJ can talk about the building in a second here. There's water and sewer on 32. There's water right on the road. Sewer, we need to go up and cross the road. And really at this stage, we're kind of like 50% design kind of thing. We did submit some lighting and some landscaping, preliminary stormwater and grading. But we really want to kind of get any big picture comments that the board has as far as the layout before we really get really in the detailed design as far as everything we talked about, the SWIP, the things that Rick wants, that we need to do, the affordable housing plan, special use permit and all that. We want to just kind of make sure the board is generally okay with this arrangement here is our goal. Unless anybody has any questions on that, I would like to turn it over to AJ to talk about the building.
Andy, can I ask you a question first?
Sure.
Because it may obviate at least my concern for that odd shaped lot that you're creating. Is that the reason for adding that lot was to try to get enough coverage. I would think that if you're going to have an affordable housing project, I think that the numbers change for affordable housing units, and you wouldn't need as much land. You may want to check that out. Village Code Section 132(3)A. If you're going to have more affordable housing units than required, then you get in essence, some density bonus.
This is a senior citizen development, so it would fall under that section, which has its own inherent bonus in it.
Okay, all right. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, no, that was really it. So it's a lot acreage issue where, like similar to ridge apartments below. So there's a bunch of wetlands in the middle, but you use the total area of the lot to calculate the units. So that's.
We needed to get to 33 units to get a model that was viable. And we also really didn't see that acreage across from the dead end road and the house being something that was really right for development, given where the wetlands sneak into it and the green space behind the school. So we were able, I think, to grab 2 more units by doing that. And that's really what made the project viable. And we wanted it to be zoning compliant. And so, you know, we're just looking to do that lot line adjustment to add just that volume to the senior building.
So where are the wetlands noted here?
This is, if you can see my cursor here, this is approximately the boundary, and then this is a pretty steep slope in here. So it's really not, it's not land that much can be done with.
I mean, you could come in and try and shoehorn something in there later, but it just, if you take a walk on it, Mr. Chairman, I really think it just wants to be green. So I mean, I respect Mr. Goldman's opinion and don't necessarily disagree with it. I think if you walk that land, you'd see it's a marginal piece for future development.
Is there any way that you might be able to have, say, some trails that allow the people in the senior citizen housing to go into that other parcel that would make that parcel more meaningful?
We actually thought about that. The slopes are kind of steep.
Okay.
If you look there, so I could, you know, if you went out and looked at it, we tried to keep the development structure up on the top flatland. There's some decent trees down there, some mature trees which are noted. We could leave that all green space. You know, we gave them a pavilion and a level walking area. But if you go down and take a look at that, the slope, it falls off pretty good. And we get nervous putting trails on slopes like that. But you know,
Right.
The answer is yes, I could try and come across the slope somewhere and put a walking path in. The particular program we're accessing is 62 and older. So I was just a little hesitant to try and figure out how to get down that grade
Understood.
safely.
All right. I will turn it over to AJ if that works. AJ, you want the architectural, the renderings or the elevations?
Yeah, go to the renderings. That would be fine. So thank you, Andy. I won't take up too much time. So this is a 2-story wood frame building with 33 apartments. It's a pretty common center loaded corridor. You come into the center of the building, left and right. There will be an elevator in the center, staircase in the center, kind of a larger lobby with mail. And then there would be 2 staircases on either, one staircase on either end of the building for egress. So fairly straightforward layout. And as Keith said, affordable housing in New York State is really all done through HCR's design guidelines, and they're pretty specific about what they want in terms of what's inside each apartment, the size of the apartments, the size of the kitchen cabinetry, closets, and then outside of the apartments, the size of the common room, and so on and so forth. New York State has been a leader in green and sustainable design and incorporated this fully into their affordable housing design guidelines. So New York State is moving now towards all electric heating. We are no longer going to be burning fossil fuels for any affordable housing projects pretty much going forward, I think starting next year. So that's in coordination with the governor's climate initiative, getting away from burning fossil fuels. So along that line, there's going to be 2 green and sustainable programs we'll be involved with. The first is LEED for Homes, which is a requirement. We will be required to be LEED Silver certified or greater. LEED is the #1 green energy rating system in the world in terms of building. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. So that looks at all aspects of the building, the site. It looks at things like the bicycle rack. We get points for that. We get points for water efficiency in terms of the plumbing fixtures and kind of LEED is a very broad-based rating system. And then the second part of that is the NYSERDA aspect of it, which is the New York State agency that encourages efficiencies in equipment. And basically it's a combination of the two that we will be required to provide approval for when we get to the design and ultimately the construction of this project. So as far as handicap accessibility, all of the apartments would be handicap adaptable. They're all serviced, the second floor apartments are serviced by the elevator. A certain number of the apartments will be fully adapted when we would, the first occupants would move in. But all can be made to be fully adapted either through mobility or through AV, audio visual, if someone is hearing impaired or something like that. So that's all set up and part of the project from day one. And then in terms of the elevations, we had already gone to HPC at I think we were there in October and presented this design, which we feel is, in keeping with kind of a New Paltz vocabulary. And I think they approved it. And we're very happy with the design, but we would certainly be willing to listen to the planning board input in terms of that or anything else. So I think that's basically it.
Very good, thank you. Any questions from the board? I know that one of the questions looking at the broad roof that you have there is, would there be any opportunities for solar electric generation on those, or is it just not facing in the proper aspect? I see the trees that are there. Doesn't really give you the configuration of the land behind it.
It has a good orientation for a solar facility. We'll have to survey the tree coverage. There are some large growth trees to the south on the site that we're going to leave standing. Our first priority would be solar thermal, to use it as a preheating source for the hot water. We're going to have centralized hot water here. So that's always our first grab, because just the Stybel Eltron panels from Germany that we use for our preheater systems are very efficient. And then we'll basically work from a budgetary standpoint to see what we can do on solar electric if we've got good exposures.
Okay. Any questions from any of the board members? No?
Not so much a question, but just a comment. I think it's important for me that the parking lot isn't emphasized as a big feature that you see as you're coming into town on 32. So I think the landscaping there, shielding that from the street will be important. But overall, I think it looks like a great project.
Yeah, I agree with Zach. I think it's a terrific idea. It's a terrific project. Fits right in with the existing buildings around it, like the Ridge. And I think it's certainly something we should encourage the Leibold group to go ahead with.
Okay.
Could I ask if you're going to be providing a traffic study of any type?
If the board feels it's warranted, we could do a study. Andy, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's up to the board. It's kind of on that in between where sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't for something like this, especially given the senior usage.
I do agree with Zach. I'd certainly love to soften that parking lot. Maybe the extra parking we could do in a soft scape, like a gravel rather than pavement. And then if we find it's really needed and used often, we could make it permanent, maybe angle the driveway and make sure we've got the right landscaping so you're not looking at the parking lot as you drive by. We don't find our senior developments have a huge amount of traffic. Usually they're one car, or in the 62 and over, we actually get people who in a village setting who wouldn't own a vehicle. They actually ride share with each other. But if the board feels that it's an item necessary for seeker, let us know and we'll do a study.
I mean, we could start with just a simple letter with the estimate of traffic generation. And, you could send that to your engineer and you can decide from there.
Does the planning board want him to start that way of just giving,
Yeah,
sort of dipping your toe in the traffic, so you have a general understanding about it?
Yeah, that's
I think it's
fine with
probably
me.
good, rather than commit to a full-blown study and bringing our consultant in on it. If we can just start with that, that would be great. Then we wanted, let's see, the other thing we wanted to do is to see if we can soften up the parking lot view. Anything else that we want to see if we can get from them, just in the general sense, guys? No?
I think the stormwater plan also is important, and I'm kind of curious to know about other, like, just water usage and how it will affect the village system.
Tim asked me about that earlier. Believe it or not, our senior apartments, I'm the energy geek in the larger groups we work with. And believe it or not, our senior buildings average about 30 to 35 gallons a day per apartment for seniors, which is about a third of what they're supposed to use. So it's a relatively low impact. We will use, the ultra low flow devices there. We love paying for water, just not a lot. So try and use them, keep the consumption low. We do find, like I said, about 40% of our seniors actually ride share. So we don't have a lot of cars. We do tend to have a lot of cars on holidays, right, when families just show up to visit. We just wanted to get buy-in from the board. I'm going to then go back and have Andy pump out a full set of plans, site plans with the SWIP, and bring back a complete set. We were very careful, because we live in the community, to get, all the board's inputs. This is the third or fourth set of renderings that we've produced after hearing different comments from folks. And, we think we have something that's maybe not dialed in 100%, but it's getting close, and hoping to get any rolling input. You guys are welcome to email us after tonight and just say, hey, can you look at this or look at that, and we'll incorporate it. But we'd like to come back with a complete set of plans
This is certainly a good start. And as our attorney has outlined, there are a number of issues that we'll need to go through along with those plans. So you certainly have your work cut out for you. So what we're going to do then, we want to, next step that we need to do is we've listened to your presentation. We need to classify the application. I think it's going to be listed as an unlisted action under seeker. Short EAF does not identify any other involved agencies.
The one thing that, Andy, I guess you're saying that there's no other involved agencies that have to approve of this project, correct? The EAF doesn't identify any, so I'm assuming that you've made the decision that there aren't any. The one that I think that you will need, given the fact that you've mentioned a pilot, I assume that's a pilot from like the Ulster County IDA or something like that. Is that correct?
No, sir. It's a local pilot from the village.
So from the Board of Trustees, we'll need something.
Yes, sir.
Right, well, then you're going to have to, because that's considered to be funding under seeker, any kind of pilot agreement. And therefore, the village Board of Trustees then would be a involved agency. So what we would have to do then is the board, after typing the action as unlisted, can then indicate its notice of intent to be lead agency, and we can circulate the notice to the village Board of Trustees, unless Andy believes that it also requires any approvals from any state agencies.
Do you generally count DEC for SWIP or no, because it's a general permit?
No, it's a general permit, so I wouldn't count the DEC for the SWIP alone. If you needed something else for the wetlands or something, then yes, but not for the SWIP.
Then no, I don't.
Will you be getting any approvals from a state agency as to the affordable housing component of it? Any credits or anything like that?
Yes. That'd be housing and community renewal, but I've never seen them listed on a seeker document. AJ, do you have any experience with that?
Well, yeah, they'll look for seeker, but only when we go to them. So if you go to them, under the next funding round, which that might be a year from now, then they'll come back and look at seeker as part of their environmental review. But
but that's really segmentating the whole thing. I mean,
Right.
if they're going to be funding, it should be done here, and it's not going to be a big deal because what happens?
we don't have a project with them, so they're not going to look at it. But that part comes later. So
Anthony, he's asking if they are an involved agency on our site plan application, and I've never seen them listed.
no,
But seeker
they won't know what to
requires-
do with it.
Well, they would simply not object to the planning board being lead agency, that's all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really something that we'll probably never hear from them. But in order to avoid segmentation, if it's a funding authority that you need for this project, then they are by definition an involved agency. So we would send a notice of intent saying, we have this project before us. Identify what the project is. They may throw it in the trash. They may say we don't object, or they may just likely never respond. And then the board here can go ahead with its seeker duties, and they're bound to the board's determination.
Okay, I don't think it's
great.
hard. And I think we should include Ulster County Health Department, even though I think it's just an extension of water and sewer. We might as well include them.
Okay.
Is it interested agency, Andy, or involved?
You could put them as involved. They may.
Okay.
see
And
it
what is the name of the funding agency in the state that you mentioned just before?
Housing and Community Renewal,
Yes.
HCR.
You guys have contact info for them? That would make my life a little bit easier because I can, or like a mailing address or an email address. So I can, I can do my own looking if you don't, but just in case.
I don't even know where you'd mail it, but AJ, if you want to.
Yeah, I can get you that. I know
Okay.
the name of one of the people in the environmental team there, so we'll start with them.
Okay,
I'll email that too.
okay.
It's not really different than a lot of times when you need a DEC or DOT approval that you don't really need right away when you're starting the project, but you'd need eventually. They still get listed as involved agencies, even though you don't have an application pending before them.
Okay.
Sure.
So DOT, yes. I missed that.
As involved too?
Yeah.
Even though we already have a curb cut, Anthony, Andy?
Yeah, you need a new,
I can't imagine you're going to leave it the way it is. Aren't you going to improve that curb cut?
yeah.
You might as well include it. It doesn't hurt, and it
Okay.
puts
Sure,
everything
sure.
behind you, and you don't have to now reapply later on. or risk that they would do their own seeker, which for DOT would, of course, never happen, but
What are you saying?
I can tell you some stories of
I'm sure you could.
high-level meetings with the DOT, and they're like, how do you spell seeker? They just, we don't do that.
Absolutely. So let's get those mailings out.
Right.
Lucky them.
They never get challenged. It's only the local municipalities that get challenged. Okay, so we'll send, Alana, will you be taking care of that?
Yeah, I might reach out to you just to make sure it's all
Sure,
good
sure.
to go, but yeah.
All right, so Mr. Chairman, you need to do two things, and one is to have a motion to declare it unlisted action under seeker, and the second is to declare your notice of intent to be lead agency, and we'll send it out to the involved agencies.
Good, okay. So with
Oh,
that,
I think, Dennis, are you there? There he is. Where'd he go?
gotta have Dennis.
We need Dennis. Dennis, come back.
Dennis bopped out of the screen for a moment.
Texting him.
Yeah, I'll text him as well.
And Alana, you'll also refer to the Ulster County Planning Board?
Yeah, and does the Ulster County Planning Board need to be like listed as an interested or involved, or
He's
do we
back.
not?
No, the interested agencies would only, they're not an involved agency because you don't need their
Okay.
approval. And interested agencies technically, I mean, you can on your own name anybody's an interested agency, but typically it's only if some agency asks to be an interested agency, do you go ahead and actually list them as an interested agency.
Okay.
Okay, well, with that in mind, need a motion to declare this as an, excuse me, as an unlisted action under seeker.
So motion.
Second,
Second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also need a motion to declare our intent to be lead agency.
So motioned.
The second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we've got that, and then, so the next thing is we're gonna work through the issues. You're gonna have a punch list of different things. We're gonna be looking to do some work ourselves. Need that the narrative for the special use permit. Yeah, any additional information needed to make a determination of significance under seeker, we certainly could use so that we can work through this. So it sounds like a good project. It sounds like a very interesting project. It sounds like a project that will fit well within New Paltz. So let's move forward and start the process.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Tim, thank you.
Take care.
So that leaves us then to close any public comments that Lana, did we receive any public comments?
No.
Okay, so we're going to close the public comments now, and then the next thing I will need is a motion to adjourn.
So motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second, all in favor?
And no one should say no. Have a
I'm
good
waiting for
night.
that time when someone objects.
Yeah, I'd shoot them.
Have a good night, all.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
good night, guys.
It was a long one, but it was good. We got a lot done.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Will.